So, where are we going today?
We're going to Zoomass Amherst to party with the animals.
Just want to let everyone know, this has been a productive day. We're getting fucked up at UMass Amherst. I fucking love it, dude.
Ever heard of the term Zoomass Slamhurst? If not, it's a nickname for the University of Massachusetts Amherst.
University of fucking Massachusetts Amherst. Let's fucking go.
Well, said no if you're in a frat, right?
I don't drink.
I'm Caroline Bertoletti, and you're listening to Wrangling Zoomass. Once upon a time, the University of Massachusetts Amherst earned the nickname Zoomass Slamhurst for excessive partying. My name is Caroline Bertoletti, and I'm a junior at UMass Amherst. The university I attend was ranked as the number 9 party school in the nation by Princeton Review in 2005. But today, the university does not even make the list. However, Urban Dictionary, the online dictionary for slang words and phrases, defines UMass Amherst as a place where kids pregame harder than most kids party, and parties are bigger on a Monday night than they would be at any other school on a given Friday or Saturday night. Administration's efforts to dispel that old reputation have been steadfast since the early 90s, with police cracking down on student-run functions. I had heard of the term Zoomass before even applying there. My family friend, who was a year older than me, was a student at UMass Amherst. I remember her posting on Instagram pictures at the university's football team tailgate, all dressed in maroon with the hashtag Zoomass Slamhurst as the photo's caption. But I was curious to know the origin of the slogan, so I googled, why is UMass called Zoomass? The popular website Quora, a question and answer site, had provided an answer. The most liked response was written by user Michael Brescia, where he says, it used to have a reputation as a heavy partying school with lots of out-of-control shenanigans. Basically, it used to have a reputation as a place with lots of party animals. Animals are often found in a zoo. Zoo rhymes with you. That being said, when I was there in the late 2000s, it wasn't nearly as bad as when my father went there in the early 70s, although some people still insist on trying to maintain that monkier, despite the administration's effort to dispel the old reputation. I'm here to explain how that reputation came to be and the journey the administration has taken to stray away. I'd asked my mom, Amy Bertoletti, if she was worried about the school's reputation when I was applying.
I knew it was a party school. Well, you have to remember, too, I made you apply to UMass. You didn't want to apply to any state school. You were, totally above state school. And I was like, you're applying to at least all of the UMasses. And, no, UMass was where I wanted you to go. So I had no hesitation about you going there. But no, your father and I were excited when you got in, and we were excited when you finally picked there. So we had no reservation about you going there.
I started attending UMass Amherst in 2019 as a communication and journalism major, a decision that made both my parents proud. However, when my mom was applying to colleges in the 80s, her family had reservations about her attending UMass Amherst. She had asked her older brother, Brian Hemmer, for advice since he had visited the school frequently.
I applied to the 4 state schools, and I got into all of them. And I told him I was leaning towards UMass. And he said, Amy, you don't want to go to UMass. He was like, you will be nothing but a number there, and you will get lost. He's like, it's too much of a party school.
I was interested to know what was so crazy about my uncle's experience at UMass, so I gave him a call.
When I was at Worcester State, I had some friends that went to UMass, and they were in Theta Chi. But we went up there. I tell this one story. We went up there. It was Halloween. Went to a big Halloween party there. And there was a live band in the house. Someone got really out of hand, and they threw him out. And you know how they throw people out of frats? They did the same thing back then, even worse. That kid that got thrown out, he was pissed. He hopped into his Volkswagen bug, drove it right into the house. The band never stopped playing. They just kept playing. Everyone kept partying. All the guys ran outside, picked the guy out of the car, beat him up again, and backed the car out of the house, and everyone just kept partying. There was a big hole in the wall from the car, and this poor guy got beat up twice, and his car got wrecked.
After hearing that story, I can see why he wouldn't want his little sister, my mom, to attend UMass Amherst. My dad had also had UMass at the top of his list when applying, which was immediately shut down by my grandmother.
And I said to Michael, you're not going up there. Your father, there's no way you're going to Zoomass. And they had that reputation for a long, long time.
The first thing my grandmother said to me when I told her I was attending UMass Amherst was, "Oh, I'd never let your father go there."
What started it was Uncle Leo had this friend who was this real nice kid. And when he went to UMass Amherst, he became a different person. He became a party animal. It just changed him. This would have been in the 70s because Uncle Leo graduated in 69. But this kid went up to UMass, and he was a nice kid, nice parents and everything, but he became an animal. I don't know whether he was involved with a fraternity or whatever, but he wasn't the same when he came home. He was almost like, I don't know, crude.
The UMass Amherst I know has no place for people driving cars into frat houses, but I'm aware it used to be just the place for that. The university attracted national media attention in 2014 after police showed up in riot gear to the students' annual St. Patrick's Day celebration called the Big Blarney Blowout. On March 8, 2014, a crowd of thousands of students gathered at the apartments on Hobart Lane, a street located close to the UMass campus, to celebrate St. Patrick's Day. The celebration grew out of hand as participants were seen vomiting and staggering due to heavy drunkenness. Police were called to the scene where they showed up in riot gear and used tear gas on the crowd. The next audio clip is from a student's video of the event.
Go home! Oh, hands up. Hands up. They're shooting up. They're shooting. Where are they pushing them all to?
A total of 73 people had been taken into custody that day. The Associated Press reported that 4 police officers suffered minor injuries after students pelted them with beer cans, snowballs, and bottles. The university denounced the unruly behavior of its attendees and said students who were arrested risked suspension or even expulsion. But Blarney is still celebrated at UMass. In the spring of 2021, multiple students were suspended after being caught at a Blarney celebration, which went against the university's COVID-19 guidelines. But current students might not know it used to be called the Hobart Hoedown. As mentioned previously, Hobart Lane is a street that houses an apartment complex located close to the UMass campus, where a lot of juniors and seniors live while attending classes. John Perella, a UMass Amherst alumni class of '93, shares how he believes him and his friends may have paved the way for the annual celebration.
I lived in Hobart Lane, and when I graduated, so 1992, we lived there, and we had this massive party that kind of turned into that Hobart Hoedown. And there was like all the like people just burnt their furniture and stuff. It was kind of out of control. We were probably one of the groups that, started that initiation of that wild end of the spring party at Hobart Lane.
Perella had also heard of the school's reputation before attending.
When I was there, right, this is in the night, like I graduated in '93, that the same consensus was out that back in the early 80s and late 70s, it was crazy, and that's, nowadays it wasn't as wild as it used to be. So I think that there's probably sort of that narrative that is always there, that it wasn't as crazy as it used to be. And it probably is true. I mean, in the 70s, it was crazier and wilder. It probably was in the 90s than it is today.
He believes UMass has changed in regards to its reputation as a party school.
I think there's some truth in that things were a lot more looser back then as far as rules and regulations. But like I said, when I was there, we thought the same thing about how it was 10, 15 years earlier. I will say also that I think the changes probably are more reflective of sort of the legal issues that are sort of present now for schools, where they're responsible for things.
UMass is responsible for the safety of its students and has since cracked down heavily on student-run functions, all while boosting its academic profile. Brian Hemmer commented on the rising academic reputation of UMass.
It didn't have the academic reputation it has now. But that's any college, Caroline. It's completely different now, So much more competitive.
In the Boston Globe article, Zoomass No More is turning UMass Amherst into an elite university what the state needs, written by Neil Swidey in 2019, Chancellor of the flagship campus, Kumbal Subbaswamy, is praised for his efforts in turning the university away from the Zoomass reputation. The university is currently in 26th place for the top public schools in the nation by the U.S. News & World Report ranking, an upgrade from its previous place of 42nd. Accepted SAT scores went up from 1197 to 1296, and grade point average went from 3.66 to 3.9. However, along with the rise in reputation comes the rise in prices.
Up there and party out, or your parents are out 30 grand. If you go to a fancy school, they're out 50 grand, and so you can't go there and fool around. You have to have some sort of, you have to get the work done. Yeah. Back then, a lot of kids just went there and partied and smoked weed and didn't do anything, go to class, didn't do anything, and you could get away with it.
With new academic expectations for incoming students, the university is more difficult to get into, more expensive from previous years, and holds a different reputation than many parents of incoming freshmen may hold. There's a lot of parents who are surprised when their kids get rejected from UMass. Besides, they did grow up when the school was considered a safety school, more associated with parties and education. Many students who would have been possibly accepted a decade ago are now waitlisted or rejected as the campus attracts higher academic performers and broader diversity. The increasing competitiveness of the university can be a real wake-up call for many parents of applying students whose ideas of the campus is fixed in the earlier days.
But it was definitely a party school. It was Zoomass, and I don't think it is. I don't think it is anymore. I don't think it. Back then it was wild, and they didn't have any like security and stuff. Like security was a joke back then. It was all done by hand. Now it's done by computers and cameras and stuff like that. They didn't have that back then. You guys are being watched. You have rules. All that stuff the frats did, like poisoning kids. That went on all the time.
Just this fall semester of 2021, a protest broke out regarding sexual assault allegations at the campus fraternity Theta Chi. By Monday night, September 20th, an estimated 500 people were protesting outside the fraternity. The protest broke out into chaos. The windows of the fraternity house were all smashed. Protesters had also ripped down the fence and flipped some of the members' cars, causing heavy damage to the vehicles. As of Thursday, September 23rd, more than 27,000 people had signed a petition asking the school to suspend the fraternity Theta Chi. Though UMass condemns sexual assault in any form on campus, they could not act on the latest allegations because they had received no valid statement from a survivor or witness. No disciplinary action appeared to be in place for the fraternity regarding the incident. This situation does not help UMass in its quest to be redefined. The next audio clip is from the University Chancellor Kampal Superswamy regarding the incident.
No, any particular organization, unless, they have been investigated, I'm not going to say that there's nothing going on there because we don't know that there's nothing going on.
You don't support them, even though they're calling on to you, saying, we haven't been,
I will not be making a statement in support of the fraternity. No.
Madeline Dubé, a biochemistry and molecular biology major at UMass Amherst, believes the protests needed to happen.
They needed to happen, and it was a way for more people to find out about it. Like now it's so widespread. Like my parents texted me about it, like family members that I obviously haven't talked to about that stuff have texted me asking me about it. I think it's a good thing that it happened because word was spread through that.
Dubé had heard of the term Zoomass while applying to colleges.
I heard the term Zoomass probably around junior year of high school, right when we were applying to colleges. I was applying to UMass anyways, but the term Zoomass made me want to apply even more.
She explained that the term had trickled down from alumni of her high school attending UMass Amherst.
At first from the people that I went to high school with that had graduated and started attending UMass. Some of my friends had older siblings that went there as well, so I would hear about it that way. Mostly from like Snapchat stories.
But since being at UMass, she feels the term has negative connotations and doesn't represent all aspects of the university.
But I also have a different look or a different feeling about it now as compared to when I heard about it in high school. Now it's like more of, I see the worst, the bad parts of it as opposed to just all the fun partying that I thought it was in high school.
What are the bad parts?
Recently a bunch of stuff has come to light about Greek life and fraternity culture, just giving these young adults, basically kids, like so much power, and they just take it and run with it, and it's proven to be a huge problem here at UMass.
Despite the recent events, Dubé still believes UMass is an excellent university that has continued to rise in academics.
I think, yeah, we've also upped our game academically. UMass was a lot easier to get into a couple years ago, and now it's only getting harder to get into. I feel like students maintain a social life while still doing well in classes, and I feel like I'm not sure if that is how it used to be, or it didn't used to be like there would be a lot of time that students would need to study. It would just be like Zoomass party type of thing.
When Aileen Newton graduated from UMass as an education major in 1993, she left with the idea that Zoomass culture was not all the school had to offer, nor was it even as big as everyone thought it was.
You were asking me about that whole like Zoomass culture. I think by the time I was there, that was just college culture everywhere. Like maybe UMass, it was so big and it was so crazy when it first got that reputation, but by the early 90s, that was just college life everywhere. Like anywhere else that I went to visit my friends, it was exactly the same. Like I think that kind of party atmosphere had just become socially acceptable and almost socially expected. Like this is part of the college experience.
Newton strayed away from the frat culture. Besides, she didn't need the frats to have fun.
If I wanted to go to a frat party, you're a girl, you can get into a frat party. But we didn't need to. Like we had plenty of people that we knew to just go to house parties or just go uptown and go to the bars.
And in Newton's opinion, the party scene was no different from any other college campus.
The level of partying that you saw at UMass, I didn't think was any different. Like I went to see my friends at Syracuse or even, any other of the bigger universities. They were just as insane as we were. Like I think it's just the way it was.
Newton's time at UMass was overall well spent.
The reputation of the school academically was really coming up, and when I was there, the biggest school was the business school, and at that point, the business school was actually really hard to get into. But it was getting tougher to get in from out of state. I mean, it was still mostly everybody's safe school and mostly a gimme to get in as an in-state student at that time, but I think academically they were definitely trying to push it. I felt like I got a really, really good education. I was completely prepared. I got my first job right out of college, and I was 100% prepared. And when I went to go to grad school and I got into Leslie, which was supposed to be this big deal, and I started my classes, I'm like, they taught me all this at UMass.
The acceptance rate for UMass Amherst hasn't changed much. It's down just a couple points from previous years at 60%, yet the number of applicants has grown stronger. UMass is now attracting more and more students, many students who have the credentials to get into selected private colleges. Now that UMass has earned a better reputation, it no longer stands in the shadow of Boston's elite private universities, but it's important to remember the university's roots. Even with the increase in academic rigor, the university still gets backlash for incidents, such as their handling of the sexual assault allegations at the campus fraternity, Theta Chi. From most of my sources in this episode, it seems Zoomass culture is embedded in frat culture at UMass. Are they different, or are they one and the same? Next episode, we'll explore the history of fraternities at UMass Amherst and their contribution to college party culture. Though the university works hard to forget Zoomass and the stigma surrounding the name, many alumni wear it as a badge of pride. Also tune in next week for a new reoccurring segment I call Stories of a Foreclosed Zoo, where alumni share their craziest UMass stories. I'm Caroline Bertoletti, and thank you for listening to Wrangling Zoomass.
Full set now if you're in a frat, right?